Hello, my name is John Spillane, and together with my colleagues John O'Rourke, Colin Coughlin and Jim Bradley, I'm here today to present our paper titled The Impact of Variations on the Project Programme in the Construction Industry. This is a case study on a manufacturing facility in Ireland. So as an introduction to the paper, variations are inevitable in construction, so that is one of the key aspects that really resonates within this research but in the industry as a whole. And as a result of their existence in the construction sector, they play a very significant role primarily in the delay to projects. There are a number of reasons why this is the case, and first and foremost it's due to the complex nature of our construction projects, be they the complexity of interrelationships, the complexity with our stakeholders, and also the complex nature of the projects in themselves, be they in the planning and or design stages. Because of this, much emphasis is placed on projects to be completed within an agreed time frame. So again, the problem here is in the vast majority of instances, this is not happening. The vast majority of our projects are not completed within the specified time frame. So with this, this study focuses on two key stakeholders, be it the client and also the contractor. And we look at who initiates the variations within this case study, why they were initiated, and then also the subsequent delay that variation has caused to the project program. There are a number of variations that we've seen primarily within the literature but also in the case study, where it's first and foremost the lack of a proper scope. So scope creep is a big issue, particularly in this case study as well. We also see aspects of financial issues which also lead to issues relative to the specification, which also cause variations from the client perspective. From a contractor perspective, we've also seen issues in relation to the design stage, but also when we get onto site due to poor site management and also difficult site conditions. To get a better stand and a viewpoint of variations in the construction industry, we conducted an extensive literature review. Within that, there are numerous papers which give an idea of the impact variations have, particularly on the delay to projects. And the idea here is one of the first papers we looked at gave that 60% of projects do not finish on time. Now, looking at the vast array of papers on variations and delay to project, that would be somewhat a conservative figure. So when we move on and we actually look at the factors that we identify in the literature, again, because we're looking at the two core stakeholders of this, be it the client and the contractor. So the key causes of variations they're seen there on the table before you, and the idea being is that there are many, but again you see an awful lot of them from the client perspective are to do with change, late decision making, and inadequate or insufficient communication, be it to scope, specification, etc., etc. From a contractor's perspective, one of the key comments that we get is the lack of involvement in the design stage or early design stage. Again, that really resonates in the literature by numerous authors. But also then we see issues that resonate when contractors get to site, be it through to lack of the appropriate equipment, shortage of labour, financial difficulties, site conditions, poor management, etc., etc. So then to help us in the context of our case study on our manufacturing facility, so we looked at having a mixed method approach, both qualitative and quantitative, where first of all, as we've gone through, we looked at the literature to see what was there. So our manufacturing facility, it's of a €7 million contract. It is a pharmaceutical plant and it is located in the west of Ireland. So within that, our first and our core source of information for this paper is what we call the variation register. So within that variation register, we have 161 variations recorded for the project, of which 62 affected the project program, all of which were a negative effect. So again, a variation may bring a positive effect where it may reduce the time frame, but in the majority, and in this case 100% of the variations caused were negative. In conjunction with that, we interviewed a number of stakeholders, the project manager, quantity surveyor, and the site manager as well. From that, we then analysed both the variation register and our interviews, where then we have results and our data is combined, where we can then have a comparative discussion both on existing research and results and also what the literature has said. This has then provided us with the platform on which we can then conclude the case study and our topic in question. So the results of our analysis: in total we had 6 themes on which numerous factors were identified. Now, for brevity and for the sake of the presentation, full details are provided within the paper. So in total, the list of variations relative to each theme is listed, and the corresponding number of days, of which then the number within the critical path are identified. And if you look who initiated them, you can see in the instance here the vast majority of the factors are related to that of the client. Okay, particularly there where we looked at scope issues. Okay, 19 issues related to that of the client and only 1 to the contractor. And prior to that, we had issues relative to specification. Again, 100% of variations to specification were as a result of the client. So you can see here is very much client-driven variation on this particular case study. So when we look at that from the perspective of the discussion, we can see here that when we look at the various themes in order of magnitude on their negative impact on the project program, we can see scope creep has resulted in almost 1/3 of the variations in this project. The next one then results in specification. So be it additions, omissions, or alteration to specification. Again, from the previous slide, we saw very much client-led in this case, accounting for almost 23%. From there, we then have temporary work, rework, and closing out, we also have 10% of variations were down to design again. So again, you can see an awful lot of these, the reoccurring issue is invariably client-led, and then which culminates with a lack of or ineffective communication between both contractor and client, but also other stakeholders within the project case study. So to conclude, this research aimed at investigating the impact of variations on the project program, looking at a case study as an exemplar. In total, we had 161 variations, in which 62 were time related, again, as highlighted. So the whole ethos here within this case study, that over 93% of the variations within this particular case study were client-led. 38% of these variations had an impact on the project program. That is, they had a negative impact and pushed out the critical path and the subsequent completion date of the project. In total, in this case study, the project program initially was a 12-month project program. However, and as a result of this, an additional 4 months was added to the project due to these variations. The study has shown that design, scope and specification issues were the most prevalent in this regard. However, the contractor was also accountable for a number of variations, primarily due to rework and issues around the temporary works package. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much for taking the time to attend this brief presentation, and I look forward to answering any questions that you may have.